Hi everyone, and welcome to week 2. Oh, I'm so glad you're joining me, and thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this time for yourself, for your health, to learn about nutrition and how plant-based eating can make you healthier. And I thank ACC for having me here, as well as providing this opportunity for me to be with you. So it's such a great thing. So today it's week 2. And again, if you missed week 1, we're going to do a quick recap. And don't worry, you'll learn everything you need to know to move forward. And if you were here last week, welcome back. Welcome back. It's going to be a fun session. So remember, this is about avoiding diet-related diseases with plant-based nutrition. So let's do a quick review. So last week, we talked a little bit about how diet impacts health. So, and I use the word diet, not as a verb, as a pattern of eating, okay? And so what we eat definitely affects how our health is, all right? And we talked about that a little bit. And then, and really about how plant-based foods, foods that originate from plants with very little processing can really reduce your risk of chronic diseases. Those diseases like heart disease and type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all those diseases that are called diet-related diseases. And so, because they're related to what we're eating, that's why they're called that. And so we talked a little bit about that. And what does plant-based mean? Well, plant-based is a focus on foods that originate as plants. So we're talking about legumes, which are beans, peas, lentils. They're actually pulses, but those foods, as well as like soybeans, tofu, those are kind of, they have a lot of protein in them. And then we talk about the leafy green vegetables and all the vegetables and fruits and the whole grains, okay, and nuts and seeds. Those are in the categories as well. So we talk about those foods, and there's very little processing involved, okay? So we also talked about the 6 steps to better health. I tried to make it, break it down into 6 steps for you. And so really the first is to replace those foods that are high in saturated fats. And where are saturated fats? Well, you only find saturated fats in animal products like meat or dairy or eggs. And so, cheese is a big a product that people use a lot. And so a lot of times you'll take a really great vegetable and you'll sprinkle cheese on it. Yeah, it tastes good, but it's actually bringing a lot of saturated fat to it, all right? So it's just learning how to replace those foods and really maybe, find ways that you can minimize them in your diet and add more of the whole foods to it, okay? The second thing was the added oils, to really start paying attention to that. And we're going to talk about that today, to read labels. We're going to go through that. And the added oils that come in fried foods, that come in, the next one is processed foods. So you'll see processed foods have added oils too. So cooking with oil, okay, even olive oil, all right, or coconut oil. Those are ways that added oil makes it into your diet. And the next one was processed foods. So anything that has some processing, it comes in a package. Even those whole foods like oatmeal, 5-minute oatmeal is probably, steel cut oats are the least processed, but they're still processed, right? Because that comes from the plant, and then it gets processed so you're able to eat it. So there is some processing there. So you want to choose the foods that are least processed. So maybe the steel cut oats or the 5-minute rolled oats versus the 1 minute or the package you open up and add hot water, okay? So it's just making those swaps. And then we talked about don't drink your calories. So easily, if you're trying to lose weight, we don't even think about the calories that come in the beverages we drink, whether it be that fancy drink from Starbucks that has milk or whipped cream or added sugar in it. And I don't want to single out Starbucks. There's a lot of juice companies or different companies that provide beverages that are a real treat. But you have to just make sure that you're counting those in your daily intake, okay? And just know that a lot of them have a lot of sugar and a lot of them have a lot of fat. And if you're watching that, then you might want to minimize those. All right, and then also we talk a little bit about adapting your favorite recipes. So today we're going to do a little cooking demo, and I'm going to show you that you can get that same rich flavor and texture that you might get with oil using another substitute that gives you a little more vitamins and, use less of it, okay? And then that last one, eat more, not less. So if you are eating a plant-based diet, you're eating foods that are very nutrient dense, and they don't have a lot of calories. So in order to meet your calorie requirement, you actually have to eat more. How great is that, right? And I have clients all the time that tell me, how can I lose weight and eat this much? I'm like, I know, isn't it awesome? So anyway, so that's what we covered last week, all right? So I caught you up really quick if you weren't here. But what are you going to learn today? All right, today I really want to have you set yourself up for success. And so what that means is you're going to really learn about reading labels and how important that is. And I'm going to kind of walk you through it so you know what I'm talking about when I say reading labels, okay? And then we're going to talk a little bit about meal planning. Yes, planning sets you up for success, okay? And part of that is stocking the pantry. And whether your pantry is a few shelves, is it a big pantry, is it a cupboard, is it a closet you can set aside, whatever it fits in your dwelling, in your kitchen, we can set it up, okay? And you can have some go-to things that'll really help you, prepare for the week. And then batch cooking. And I know if you're living by yourself or just as, a couple, sometimes, cooking too much, you don't want to do that. Well, that's when you use your freezer, right? And so your freezer can really save you time down the road, okay? And we're going to have a cooking demo, like I said. So that's what's in store for today. So let's keep moving forward. So, reading labels. If it has a label, if a food has a label, it means there's some processing has occurred. So if you look at the picture here of these carrots that look like they're freshly pulled out of the garden, they will be not packaged with the label. Usually you'll find them like that at a farmer's market, probably a little cleaner, but you'll find them like that with the top still on them. And so if it's in a package, then there'll probably be a label about it, okay? And so, what you want to do when you look at your labels is to look for, quickly look at the saturated fat column, and in a moment I'll show you an actual label. You want to identify are there any added oils, and then you want to look at your ingredient and allergen list. Okay, that can be a quick, really quick check to see what foods am I avoiding. So for example, if you're truly trying to be plant-based, like I am, I want to avoid any sort of milk products because they bring saturated fat with them and zero fiber. So, as well as some other milk proteins that I don't really want. So rather than read through all the ingredients and have to decode all the special terms they use for milk, I just look at the allergen list and it'll say milk if it's in it. And so it's like, oh, there's milk, it's out, okay? And then the last thing I really want to talk to you about as we go through this is, does it qualify for your pantry? When you kind of go through all these steps, you're like for me, it's like, nah, if it has milk on the label, it's out, okay? And my pantry space is sacred. So for a food to earn its spot in my pantry, it has to really bring something to the table, okay? It has to have some fiber, it has to have some vitamins, it has to taste good, mainly, and really be a multi-use, okay? Sometimes, I try to find, products that I use in multiple meals, okay? All right, so still moving forward, let's take a look at a label, all right? So I'm sure if you've looked at any labels on packages, you can go look in your pantry now and you can kind of go through this and you can say, okay, and they've changed. They used to be slightly different. Okay, so some might have the old labels, but they have mainly the same information on them. But you'll have the serving information, okay, and you'll have the calories. And just know that the calories refer to the serving, not to the whole container. So sometimes people are like, oh, this food only has 100 calories. Oh, well, that's, if you really read, it's like, oh, that's 100 calories per serving, and the serving's 2, okay? Yes, I'm talking about cookies, okay? And you're like, oh, darn it, only 2 cookies, that's hardly anything. But, so just know that's for, a serving. And then, but what I really focus on, if you go down and you look at total fat, then it'll break it down into saturated fat and trans fats, and then it'll even break it down, some of them will break it down into other fats, okay? This label doesn't show that. And so we want to keep that saturated fat number low, okay? If you're trying to do a percentage of your daily intake, try not to have it over 2 or 3 grams per that food item, okay? I go for 0 if I can. Trans fats are sort of been bleeped out. I mean, they are not good for you. And so the FDA has come in and said, let's get rid of trans fats. And so for a while, you saw a lot of products that had on the title, no trans fats, right? Because there was so much research around how, they were not good for you. And then you can look at the cholesterol. And we know there's going to be cholesterol in it because this item, which I'm not sure if this item was, but has saturated fat. Remember, saturated fat and cholesterol go together, all right? They're both found in animal products. So those 2 things go together. So if you're watching your dietary cholesterol, you want to watch that cholesterol number, right? Okay. And then, a lot of people with type 2 diabetes worry about the carbohydrate number. And when I work with my clients, I tell them, we're not worried about carbohydrates right now, okay? We're worried about saturated fats. So I don't pay attention to that really. I'm from the mindset that complex carbohydrates are a positive thing. Our body needs them, okay? So I don't pay attention to that, but you do you, if that's something you look at. And then we look at fiber, dietary fiber. So remember, fiber is our friend. It helps stabilize blood sugars if you have type 2 diabetes. It helps fill you up if you're trying to feel full and lose weight. High fiber, certain fibers, like in oatmeal, really helps lower your cholesterol levels. So just know fiber is a really positive thing. It keeps everything moving through your body the way it's supposed to. All right. So just know. All right. And so and then the added nutrients, you can look at the vitamins and all that. But if you're eating a plant-based diet, you're getting so many vitamins and minerals. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So the next one will show you the ingredient list, okay? Okay. And so fewer ingredients is generally better, okay? And like this item, obviously, is milk, all right? But what I wanted to show you is that things are listed by weight. So that first item on the ingredient list is what is in biggest abundance, okay? So for example, if you want to do whole grains, you want it to say whole grains as the first item. And then I pointed this out because I wanted to have you look at kind of code names for oil and dairy, okay? So if you look at this, it'll say it has fish oil in it. Like, what's that doing in milk, right? And it also has palmitate. And palmitate is actually a fatty acid that kind of keeps the vitamin A, because vitamin A is added to milk, okay? And so it's another thing added. So you just start really seeing that, what you think is maybe just a milk product has other things added when you start reading your labels, okay? So, for example, even if you're doing, oat milk, which is the rage right now, look and see. A lot of brands will have oil in them, added into them. So you got to read your label, all right, and see, because there's some that do not, but there's some that do, all right? And so just look for those, all right? Okay, so, and then I wanted to show you last but not least is the allergen label, all right? This is kind of your cliff notes of how to really know if you can avoid the foods. Now, if you probably already know this, if you avoid milk because you're lactose intolerant, or if you're celiac, right, or gluten intolerant, because it lists wheat. So the 8 things are the wheat, the milk, the egg, peanuts, if you have a peanut allergy, tree nuts, soybeans, fish, and the crustacean shellfish, crab and shrimp, okay? So those allergens have to be listed. The FDA says they have to be on a label and let you know if they are in that item, okay? So this is a way that you can really look and see. So for example, I avoid fish, I avoid egg, I avoid milk because they're animal products, right? So I can tell really quickly in a food item if that's been added just by looking at the allergen list, okay? All right, so next we have, let's jump into meal planning, all right? So meal planning sounds completely boring. I know, it does. But really the key to meal planning is finding foods that you like the flavor profiles, all right? For example, I'm not a big fennel person. It's not a spice I really like. And so if that flavor doesn't really, if a recipe has that in it, I look to see if I can do something else, okay, and put it in its place, or I can use less, or I choose something else, because it's not so really knowing your flavors that you enjoy really helps you narrow down what you like to eat. The other thing for meal planning is considering your budget, right? Budget considerations are a big deal, and you want to definitely be able to choose foods and you plan your menu around your budget. And then the other thing with planning is you have to budget time to not only plan, but to shop and then really realize what's happening this week. Do I even have time to cook this food? All right. And so sometimes, you might do a day where you just cook and then you save it. Okay, and you batch cook and you eat it multiple times. So, and then meal prep skills. I am not a great cook. Okay, I like to eat, and so I have to cook, and I had a family to feed. But so I choose easy things. And so what I have to tell you is that good food doesn't have to be complicated. All right, if you enjoy cooking, that's fine. If you have the skill and the desire, then certainly plan things that are going to work, plan, harder menus. But if you're not, and your goal is to eat really good, healthy food, and less time in the kitchen means more time doing something else, then take that into consideration, okay? So those are some of the things I want you to think about when you're planning your meals and looking for recipes. Okay, the next thing is stocking the pantry. And like I said, and the freezer. So I kind of lump the freezer into this, all right? So whether your pantry is, like I said, a couple shelves in a closet, is it a cupboard, is it a real pantry, whatever it is for you, learn how to stock it, okay? And so what does that mean? You can buy, like in this picture, ingredients that are shelf stable. So, and ingredients you use in multiple recipes. So for example, I love lentils because lentils cook fast. They sit on the shelf ready to be cooked, and they can be used in so many things. I use lentils in place of meat and tacos, in place of lentil meatballs for my spaghetti, right? They are very versatile. Like I said, they cook very fast. So I stock up on those. You can buy them in bulk. You can buy them on sale. And like I said, they're not like the regular beans that take forever to cook. They cook roughly in 20 minutes, okay? So they are definitely in my pantry. The other thing when you're considering stocking your pantry is, doing bulk items, okay? You can go to the bulk items and usually they're less expensive. The difference is you have to then store them in something, right? So anytime you have to do more work, things are often less, they cost less. So just know that, if you have the time to do it, then by all means, maybe save a few cents or a few dollars. But if you don't, then buy something that's, already done for you, okay? And then frozen, canned, and dried, all right? Yes, you can eat canned. Buy the low sodium, rinse it out. Yes, you can eat frozen, okay? And those things stay in your freezer and are ready at a moment's notice, all right? And so, fresh is great if you can get fresh, but sometimes you can't get out. Okay, you can't, maybe there's a pandemic, or maybe there's a storm, or maybe your car's broken down. And if you have your pantry and your freezer stocked, you always have a healthy meal at your fingertips. Okay, that's where the beauty of the planning comes in, all right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about batch cooking. So batch cooking really saves time and effort. It just does. And you know, it's really only good if you don't mind eating leftovers, okay? And you don't mind cooking a large amount at once. So for me, I will double recipes, you know, and just eat it for lunch the next day, eat it for dinner the next day. Have down here listed use leftovers in a new way. So maybe I'll make a big pot of veggie chili, and the first night we'll eat it over brown rice. And then the next night, I might use it in tacos with some fajita vegetables. And then the next night, because now it's dwindling down, right? So I have less of it, I might use it over potatoes as a potato topping and do a potato bar with some scallions and other things. So you've cooked this one main thing, but yet you've been repurposed it multiple times so that it freshens it up, right? It's not the same boring food, you know. And so just know, some people don't mind eating the same thing, some people do. So just know, figure out where you fall in that, all right? And so, and then look for recipes that freeze well. All right, you know, some things freeze better than others, and so you can actually just Google, does this freeze well? And sometimes it'll tell you, like, you know, I often will do lentil soup and freeze that. Soups are generally pretty good to freeze, okay? So, so that's the batch cooking. Doubling recipes, well, I had a big family and 4 children, and so I doubled almost everything, but I also didn't want to cook every single night. And you know, we did lunches every day, so I would always be planning ahead. If I make, you know, more of this, then I can serve it as a side dish tomorrow and cook less the next day, right? So it's kind of, you know, figuring out how that works for you. The beauty too with using your freezer is there's less food waste. So, you know, you can cook more and then just freeze things, and you won't have to worry about wasting the food. Okay? All right. So the takeaways, what I really hope you walk away with from today's this learning lesson is that reading labels really helps you make informed choices, all right? You know, it's important for you to know what you're taking into your body because that affects your health. And so, you know, learning how to interpret those labels really will help you. And then I'm hoping that this meal planning, just really realizing, you know, oh, let me see what recipes have the flavors I like and, you know, aren't going to take me more than 30 minutes start to finish, okay? And that planning actually helps with budgeting, because if you cook at home, one of the best things you can do for your health is actually to cook at home, because you control what goes into the food, okay? And so cooking at home is so good for you, and it's way easier on your pocketbook, okay? And so just know that, you know, cooking at home and meal planning helps your budget. And it just helps you make better choices because you know what you're going to eat. Raise a hand, how many of you sometimes make poor choices when you walk through the door or you get at the end of the day and you're starved and you don't know what's for dinner? Right? That's when you either eat out, or that's when you open a packaged food or whatever it might be. I mean, I know it's a human thing, okay? So, and then remember, stocking the pantry sets you up for success as well. Put in some of those shelf-stable foods. You know, tofu is shelf-stable. You know, dried beans, grains, canned, I use diced tomatoes in so many things. I stock up on diced tomatoes, right, when they're on sale. And so just know that, you know, there's things you can have in your pantry that you can pull out and make a meal with, all right? So, and the last thing is that batch cooking, okay? If that's, you know, for you, even if it's just you and you're cooking for yourself, you can double the recipe and have enough for leftovers the next day, okay? And it'll save you at least one day of cooking, one night of cooking, all right? So, what are we doing next? Okay, we're going to cook. I want to show you really quick the salad I'm going to make. It's called a sesame noodle salad, all right? And we will go through the ingredients for you. It's made with green cabbage. You could spice it up and use some of the red cabbage too if you choose to, because more color is better, right? Remember, eat the rainbow. We use some red bell pepper, some carrots that I shred in, some peanuts, some sesame seeds, some scallions, and whole wheat pasta. And yes, if you have type 2 diabetes, it's okay. It's whole wheat pasta is really actually a very low glycemic grain or processed food. So it's all right, especially when you mix it in with all the vegetables and everything. But the secret sauce, the best part of this salad is really the dressing. So it's going to have some soy sauce, and instead of oil, we're going to use tahini. All right, and that's ground up sesame seeds that will give you that kind of that oily texture that'll stick to the cabbage. And then we have some ginger and balsamic vinegar and agave and some spicy sambal olek. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I'll show it to you so you know what it is. And some black pepper. Okay, and so we're gonna move them over and go do that. But really quick, I want to let you know what's going to happen next week after today, okay? So next week, we are actually going to, I want to go through how to eat plant-based in our carnivore world, okay? Eating out in restaurants, really, it's possible. You have to develop this fine art of ordering, okay? And travel, piece of cake, and holidays, you can still stick to this eating plan. You just need to be clever about it, all right? So, and then we're going to kind of cover that, and then we're going to kind of coach you on how to respond to those common questions you get if someone notices that you are eating all this food and you've slimmed down. They're going to say, so what are you doing? And you're going to oh, I'm trying this plant-based thing. And they're going to say, whoa, how do you get your protein? Or something like that. Well, we're going to go through some of those answers, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing and next week. But first, let's do our cooking demo, all right? So let's make our sesame noodle salad.
How long are you going to walk over to the kitchen?
Huh?
How long are you going to walk
Oh, so, okay. I had to get coached on this. I'm going to walk over to the kitchen right now, okay? And so follow me over. Okay, here we are in the kitchen. All right, isn't this fun? Like I said, I'm not a trained chef. I was a busy mom with 4 children, and so I had to kind of teach myself how to cook and how to cook quickly and cook well. I mean, people like good food. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this sesame noodle salad. And so let me go through the ingredients. I read them to you first. And so what I did is I did prep a little bit of ahead of time. And so typically how I do it is I start my water boiling, okay? And because I'm going to cook the noodles. And I am using just whole grain noodles, all right? And these happen to be linguine because I kind of like a little bit of the thicker noodle. You can use spaghetti. You can use whatever noodles you like. So where do you want me? Yeah, okay. Whatever noodles you like, but choose a whole grain. Get that extra fiber when you can, all right? And you, believe me, sometimes people go, I'm not going to like them. They'll taste really good. They will. Just give it a try. All right, so so I start those off. I start boiling those. And if you don't know, you cook noodles for about 10 minutes, okay? And then you drain them. And then, but while that's happening, I will chop my cabbage, okay? So this recipe calls for roughly 2 cups of cabbage. And this was a whole head, right, before I chopped it. And when I did that, it was about 4 cups, okay? And so I would use probably the whole thing and like quadruple the recipe because it's that good. But if that's going to be too much for you, go ahead and, so now you have half a cabbage, right? Remember, I don't like to waste food. So how are you going to use this? Could we use this other half? I have another recipe that I use called spaghetti soup. I could use it in that. I could start adding it into salads. I could put it into a stir fry, right? So you don't have to waste anything, all right? So we chop that, and how I do it, it says to shred it. I typically just sort of cut down like this. I don't know if you can see this. And then I cut kind of bite size, all right? So I don't really shred it, I just sort of chop, all right? So let's put that in, and like I said, I did it in advance. So here was my 2 cups, little 2 cups plus now, right? So you just got it in your salad. So this is what it's going to look like, okay? And then we have our red bell pepper, okay? And you're going to chop this up. These are pretty good sized peppers, and actually I just got this at Bel Air, and it was really sweet. They're really good. And so these are great not only in the salad, they are great eaten. Okay, and everybody chops a bell pepper differently. I kind of chop it around like this. Probably not the proper way culinary wise, but it works, and then I just pull out the seeds. But you know, you're just going to dice it. And I washed everything before I got here, but I just want to give you the idea. I do everything kind of, you know, bite size. And so the point I want to make with cooking is that it's not like baking. Where baking, you have to be more precise. Cooking is where you get to be creative, right? Especially with this sort of recipe. If you like red bell peppers, throw more in, okay? If you want a few more noodles than the 4 ounces, you can throw more in, okay? It would be hard to leave the cabbage out, so you know, same thing, you can put more in. Just know that you can tweak it a little bit, okay? So let's go ahead and add our red bell peppers in here, because I already chopped that. So this is 1 bell pepper. It was a pretty good sized bell pepper, right? And then we had carrots. So I pre-washed this. Now you have a choice. You can just wash them really well without having to peel it. I don't usually peel my carrots. I wash them really well, and then I just use them. So what I do is I just take a grater, and then I just grate it in, okay? Just grate it in like this. Okay, here's how I cheat. Sometimes I cheat because you get kind of tired grating, okay? You can buy kind of shredded carrots already done, all right? So just so you know. Okay, and then we have, so here's the carrot. Add that in. All right. Don't you love these colors? Ah, it's just so beautiful. Okay. Now remember, our noodles are still going, so we got to kind of keep an eye on those. And then we are going to crush our, I wanted to show you this part because this might throw you for a loop a little bit. So it calls for crushed peanut butter, or peanuts. So I get some, and everyone can do it differently. I get wax paper, and you measure out your peanuts. Okay. Okay, now I've got to tell you, in this recipe, it calls for a whole cup of peanuts, okay? And remember, peanuts will have some saturated fat in them. So I usually half it. I usually half the recipe, or half the amount. It's up to you what you choose to do, but you know, peanuts are kind of a concentrated calorie food, and they really are in here just to add flavor and texture. So I think a half a cup is probably enough. But then I take my rolling pin and I just crunch them up. Okay. like that. And you dump them in, okay? Now, if you have one of those big Chinese cleavers, you might be able to crush them up this way too, okay? So it's up to you how you do it. Or you could always throw them in whole, all right? But honestly, it gets, in smaller pieces, you get more of the flavor in each bite, okay? And that's what we're really going for, is just to have that texture. Okay, so we've got the peanuts in, and I usually reserve some to sprinkle on top at the end because it just looks pretty. Okay, see, that was a whole bunch of peanuts, so I just wouldn't use that whole amount unless you're a really a peanut lover, okay? And then it calls for your sesame seeds. So let me show you. Here's the sesame seeds, right? And there's two different types. I found these in the ethnic aisle, okay? And they were cheaper, okay? They were cheaper than the others that I had, all right? And so, and they do the same job, okay? They do the same job. And they actually, the recipe calls for a quarter cup. I usually sprinkle them on top, okay? I really do. I'll use a few, I mean, I'll sprinkle in there, but then I think they look really pretty on top. And this is the beauty of a recipe like this, is you make it your own, okay? You make it how you like it. And so kind of what your flavors and preferences are. So you add the sesame seeds in, and then you sprinkle in your scallions, which again, I usually save some and sprinkle on top after I mix it all. This was, what does it call for? It calls for a half cup, and that was probably about 3 or 4 scallions that I chopped up. And then we're gonna drain our noodles, okay? And rinse, kind of rinse them, cool them off. And then we're gonna add those in, all right? So, let me get this here. See if I can add them in. That's quite a few noodles. I'm not sure we need that many. Unless you're, and like I said, you could use, you know what would be good? You could almost use the vermicelli, the really thin noodles, but just, think about getting the whole wheats. And then we're gonna toss it. Look at how much this makes, right? This is like, that's quite a big salad. You can imagine, I used a much bigger bowl, and like I said, I usually do it for big gatherings because people eat this. Whether they're plant-based or not, this salad will go. People love it. Okay, so that's the salad. Now remember we talked about how the dressing is really the part that really makes a difference. So I went ahead and I made the dressing up, but how I normally do it is I'll just get, a measuring cup and a whisk, and we will add them in. So I do the light soy sauce because we don't have to, we want to watch our salt. Okay. Remember, salt, you're only allowed, the daily requirement of salt is like 2,300 grams, which is like a teaspoon, okay, of salt a day. So, and if you eat any sort of packaged food, you're gonna get that. So let's get this in. This is a quarter cup. Okay. It's a very slow pouring soy sauce. All right. Now, tahini, I wanted to show you. I brought 2 types. You can find them both at the store, okay? And, this one is in a jar, and the only difference, this one's in a jar and this one's in a can, all right? Now, don't be surprised when you open these. Like this one you have to open with a can opener, okay? Don't be surprised when you open it, there's gonna be a bunch of oil on top, okay? And that's just the normal separation from the oil in the seed. It's just like the same thing if you buy natural peanut butter. People really shy away from it because they're like, oh, look at all that oil on top. Well, actually, having that oil on top means that they haven't used any added fat to keep it mixed in. So it's actually better for you and lower fat than if you were to buy the pre-mixed, because they usually add oil or fats into it to keep it mixed, right? So don't be surprised. It does take a little bit of effort to stir it in, okay? So you have to kind of stir it in, and you know, but this is what's going to give you that kind of texture that people like with, you know, salad dressings. So let me show you what it looks like a little bit. So it's a little pasty, right? Yeah, so you stir it until you can kind of mix it in. So we need about 2 tablespoons of this. And, you know, like I said, it doesn't matter which one you choose. I think the one in the can might have been a little less expensive, but the thing about it, it's not a budget product, but you don't use a lot of it, okay? You don't. You use it here and there, 2 tablespoons, and it sits in your refrigerator. I mean, it takes me a long time. If you make any sort of hummus, you probably are familiar with tahini, okay? It's literally sesame seeds ground up. Okay, so that's that. And then we have some ginger. Now, this is a little tool I really like. It's called a microplane. It's like yeah, it's just a microplane. I don't know. And I don't really peel my ginger, okay? Because when I use the microplane, it keeps the peel kind of on top because it's so fibrous. So it's really up to you if you want to peel it, because this says to mince it, and I'm kind of lazy, so I just kind of grind it. I just kind of microplane it in, okay? And you can see underneath, it really makes it very fine. Okay, and then I just kind of have it drop into here, okay? And if you like more ginger, use more. If you like less, use less. It's really up to you. And then we have balsamic vinegar. Make sure you read your labels because balsamic vinegar sometimes has added sugar into it, okay? So you want to make sure that, in this brand, I don't know, let me look and see. I can't find the ingredient label. So again, just make sure you're getting what you want, all right? So we have 2 tablespoons of this. All right, and agave. So this is going to be a little sweet. Oh, how long? Sorry, I just saw the question. I'm sorry. How long does open tahini keep? Do I store it in the fridge? Yes, you store it in the fridge, and it keeps for a long time. I mean, sometimes it'll start getting a little dried out because often what I will do is I'll pour a little of the fat off of it so it's easier to stir. And so then it doesn't stay as long. But if you mix it in, is tahini in the refrigerated section or the shelf? Okay, you'll find tahini. I made note of this because I always have to look for it. If you go to the peanut butter section, I believe, it'll be there, okay? So almond butter, peanut butter, you know, whatever, that kind of section, I think it'll be on the shelf, okay? And there'll be the different types, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. I hope that's where I found, I'm pretty sure that's where I found it, because I tried making, because like I said, I have to always look for it. I don't buy it a lot, because, you know, it lasts quite a while. Okay, so the agave, what I want to tell you about this is it's sweet, okay? So it gives that little bit of sweet flavor. And this one happens to be blue. I don't think the color really matters. It happens to be organic. Doesn't really matter. This probably was on sale. That's probably why I bought it. And you know, it's a low glycemic sweetener. So if you have type 2 diabetes, it's a way to add the sweet without having it spike you, okay? And so you'll see this and maple syrup, a lot of things like that used as sweeteners in some of these recipes because for that reason, okay? So what do we need? We need roughly 2 tablespoons. And I think you probably are noticing I'm not a precise sort of measure. I kind of guesstimate. And then, like I said, I'm not really sure how to, sambal oelek, am I saying that right, everyone? Can you see it? And it's like a chili paste, okay? I'm not sure, it's ground fresh chili paste, okay? I found this on the ethnic foods aisle, okay? And you got it? Okay, and so this is one of those things, it calls for a half tablespoon, but you can certainly add more or less, whatever you like, okay? All right, I'm gonna start this. Okay, this is not my good knife skills, just so you know. Okay, so for me, this is 1 tablespoon, so this is a teaspoon. I'm not a huge spicy person, but I'm gonna add a little more because this is gonna go to my cameraman. Hopefully he likes spicy. And then some black pepper. Now, black pepper you can use, I don't know if I often will use freshly ground black pepper, just whatever you have, okay? It doesn't matter. And I don't usually measure that, all right? So, did I get everything? Gingers, balsamic vinegar, I think I got everything. And then you kind of make sure that it takes a little bit for the tahini to kind of get in there. And you take your whisk and you just whisk her up. Okay, now this salad actually tastes better after it has sat for a while, okay? It tastes good. You could make it and serve it right away, but it actually, I think that it, as it sits and absorbs the flavors and they meld a little bit, I think it tastes a little bit better. So then you just pour it on. Okay. Okay, wait, I got another question. Let me see. What if you can't eat spicy or hot? I'm also gluten-free. How do I change these ingredients? Also, how much ginger is used? Oh, sorry. The ginger, it calls for 1 tablespoon. I did not use that much in this recipe. And it says finely minced. So you could almost buy probably minced ginger like you can the garlic. But spicy or hot, just leave it out, Jean. Yeah, you can just leave it out. And it was still, I think, tastes really good because you have the other flavors. And then the other question, what was part of that question? Thank you. How do I change these ingredients? Yes, okay, gluten-free. Use gluten-free noodles. Try that, okay, and see. I'm thinking you can probably see how they hold up. I would maybe even try rice noodles and see, the heavier rice noodles or something like that and see if it makes a difference, okay? So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I don't know, you gotta try it and just see. I think, honestly, the cabbage and all the vegetables with the sauce would just be good too, even if you left the noodles out, okay? All right, so that is it. You pour it on, you toss it together, right? And you could use more ginger. I should probably put more ginger in it. And then you can take if you've saved any, let's see, peanuts, you kind of sprinkle them on top. And then your green onions on top. Okay, if I was serving this, I'd probably put it in a much prettier bowl. Okay. And then you could take some of your sesame seeds and sprinkle them on top. Okay. Voila, there it is. Sesame noodle salad. You keep it in your refrigerator, okay? And it is a really delicious dish. I promise you. I have people come to my house and love this dish, whether they are plant-based or non-plant-based. It's just very filling, has really great flavors and everything. So, are there any other questions for me? Anything about the presentation I gave you or about the salad itself? I think are we going to drop that salad? You should get a PDF of the recipe that you can download, okay? And so that way you have the recipe and you can try it out. So, any questions at all?
You can unmute.
Oh, how long will it last in the refrigerator? That's a good question. You know, it'll probably last several days because, but yeah, I don't know, honestly. It gets eaten so fast. You know, it just is always gone. And so I've never tested to see how long. I would keep it in, you know, a Tupperware like this or something that seals it really well. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll make extra dressing, okay? And then I'll dress the salad and then I'll put it in the fridge, and then right before I serve it, I take that little last bit of dressing and I freshen it up because everything kind of absorbs, right? And dressing it up and toss it again. But you know, that's just something if I'm serving a crowd. But I mean, I don't know. Can you see how great this looks? Isn't it beautiful? So colorful and so full of good nutrients for you. So, any other questions?
Take a close-up of it.
Okay. Let me get a close.
Close-up, camera 3.
We're trying to get a close-up of this. There we go. Yeah. I wish you could smell it. I wish you could be there and smell it. Oh, so if you have type 2 diabetes, this is a great salad, okay? Because it high in fiber, that's the whole wheat noodles, has so many colorful vegetables, and there's no, you know, no saturated fat in it. And so if you're watching your type 2 diabetes, you really want to be avoiding foods with saturated fat because that contributes to insulin resistance, okay? So what I wanted to point out with the tahini that is used in place of the oil, and so it basically, you know, the nice thing about it is it does have some saturated fat in it, but it's 3 grams for the 2 tablespoons, and that's spread over the whole thing. And that saturated fat comes from nuts. And so it's not from, but it also has fiber in it. So just know that. And so we're always trying to fiber up foods. And so oil has no fiber. Whereas you use tahini, not only does it have fiber, but it has, you know, some potassium and iron and a few other vitamins. They're minute, but, you know, we're trying to really add things in wherever we can and get rid of the foods that bring nothing, okay? So yes, my husband has type 2 diabetes and he eats large volumes of this salad, okay? So hopefully that answered your question. Was there anyone else?
Can we use coconut oil?
Oh, no.
Repeat the question.
Oh, someone asked, can you use coconut oil? So I would prefer you not, okay? Please use a tahini. Instead, coconut oil is very high in saturated fat. It is higher than a lot of other oils. I mean, if you were going to use oil instead of the tahini, I would encourage you to use canola oil, all right? It's better for you than coconut oil. But neither coconut or canola have any fiber, any vitamins. All they bring are calories to the game, right? So please, please substitute that out. Don't, you know, use a tahini or use, like I said, canola instead. If you don't have that, I would use less of it. So remember, just because it calls for a certain amount doesn't mean you always have to use that amount. Almost every recipe I use, it always says saute your onion in 2 tablespoons of oil. I never do that step. I saute my onion in vegetable broth, okay? Because you don't need that extra, you don't need that. You just don't. And so just know that that's the beauty of these sort of recipes is you can tweak them the way you want, okay? And make them healthier for you because of those changes. And it really does not sacrifice any taste. It does not. You actually taste, without the oils, you actually taste the vegetables and everything else better, okay? Any other questions? I'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the salad. And please join me next. Actually, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Okay? Am I muted? Okay.